In 5.
All right. Um, so we're going to talk about artifact colors on the CoCo3. More than just black, white, red, and blue. Um, but maybe we can start with talking about the Color Computer 1 and 2 artifacts. And I've sort of arranged a little timeline here. And the info that I could find said that CoCo Max came out in 1985, which I won't argue with. And it used along with lots of other games and other programs at the time, used artifact colors on the CoCo 1 and 2. In CoCo Max, the typical black, white, red, and blue colors were available, but also some of the pixel patterns that you had beyond just the simple odd and even vertical stripes produced other color artifacts, and my recollection is that some of them were kind of yellow or brown. So even on the CoCo 1 and 2, you could produce a few other colors maybe than besides just the red and blue artifacts. And typically with the color artifacts, because and I'll talk a little bit about how the artifact colors work in just a bit, but it reduces the horizontal resolution by about half, because instead of a color being one pixel on the screen, a color is made by the artifact colors are made by a stripe, a vertical stripe of black and white, or white and black, depending on the on which color you were aiming for, and the timing of the CoCo as it fires up. But that essentially meant that the red and the blue colors were half resolution horizontally. However, if you placed your pixels carefully, you could also see still the individual pixels. So you could get, if you were careful, you could get more resolution than just 128 by 192, even on the CoCo 3 or on the CoCo 1 and 2. And I remember that from playing around with CoCo Max back on the CoCo 1 and 2. In 1992, the August issue of Rainbow Magazine, there was an article called "Artifacting Meets the CoCo 3" by Adam Brindell, and he had a simple basic program in there demonstrating artifact colors on the CoCo 3. And he hints at the possibilities, but this is mostly experimental. He doesn't have like a recipe for how to map these artifact colors to actual images. I mean, this was before the era of cheap digital cameras, though we did have video digitizers like the DS69B. So it wasn't just super easy to get digital photos and put them on the color computer. So the idea of we're gonna be able to map these artifact colors directly onto a digital photo or something, you didn't quite take it to that extent. But in those days, shortly after the introduction of the CoCo 3, if people wanted better color on a CoCo 3, they were going to get an RGB monitor and just do it in RGB. So artifacting kind of was seen as a thing of the past, something that was a nifty hack to get a few more colors out of the CoCo 1 and 2, but why would you use it on a CoCo3 when you've got 64 real colors to play with, 16 at a time? So around 1999, Robert Galt published a personal web page, including a section on how the CoCo3 produces composite video colors. This doesn't directly address artifact colors per se, but artifact colors are essentially a backdoor way of doing what the CoCo3 does to produce color composite video. And like the Apple II, for instance, all of its colors are artifact colors. That's how it produces any color that it produces, is through artifact colors. Skip forward another 10 years or so, and around 2009, on the old CoCo3.com forum, several guys had a discussion about how to do something like 256 artifact colors on the CoCo3. Guy who went by the handle of Potatohead, another guy named Jason Law, and again Robert Galt had this discussion, and the idea was that you could on the CoCo's 640 by 200 4-color screen, using only shades of gray in the palette registers, you could use basically byte-wide pixels. Instead of interpreting those pixels as 2-bit pixels, 4-color pixels, you could essentially write bytes into that screen memory, and the bytes would produce. You would have 256 different values and potentially 256 different artifact colors. And the result of this work was that they made a set of 4 different 256 color palettes that you could use to display digitized photos on an NTSC color composite monitor or TV in an effective 160 by 200 resolution. And I was really excited by this at the time. And Jason Law sent me a copy of these 4 palettes, and I made a quick, simple slideshow of images using that, and I put it on my YouTube. Put it up on YouTube, and at that time I was using this video digitizer in a PC that I had at the time, and it did an okay job, but the image quality is not great. It doesn't look doesn't look particularly good on the YouTube video, but you can get the point, get the idea there. In 2021, I posted a post on the CoCo Facebook group, and I put up a diagram that was inspired by Robert Galt's 1999 article. He basically put the CoCo3 composite. Well, he wrote a program that you could type in from the article that will it'll draw a color wheel that shows how the artifact, or how, not the artifact colors, how the composite colors work. And it's got a bunch of numbers on it. You can type the number, and then that number will show up. It'll show that color in a small circle down at the bottom of the screen. But when I saw that and figured out kind of how that was working, it occurred to me that that looked a lot like the YUV or YCRCB color space. And so what I did then was on a modern computer, I kind of replicated that color wheel and calculated the color values that should go in it. And in Inkscape, I painted those colors into the color wheel. And sure enough, it looked like what Robert Galt was describing. And he later said that he wasn't really aware of YUV or YCRCB color space at the time he made this, but that's just how it worked out. And then sure enough, that's the thing I made looked a lot like what he described. So in the comments to that post, I added some more discussion, thinking that understanding the way this works a little bit better might help us to do a more sophisticated version of the 8-bit artifact colors that would preserve more of the horizontal resolution, right? Because that was done on a 640 wide screen, but we're only getting effectively 160 pixels. And in fact, the way you do that is to reduce the source image to 160 by 200, and then map that image onto the palette that Potatohead and Jason Law came up with. And so you're reducing the resolution of the image ahead of time to 160 pixels wide. And I knew from the old CoCo Max days that you could get a little bit more resolution than half of the, or in the case of the CoCo3 stuff, a quarter of the actual spatial resolution. So I discussed that, and as a possibility. And I thought, I did a little simulation. I thought, well, what if we, what if we could if, one of the things that people did back in the old days to get more higher color display on the CoCo3, usually using RGB colors, was to take multiple screens and flip back and forth between them really quickly, to do a kind of a flicker vision display that allows persistence of vision to blend the colors in your eye. And so what if we did that, a similar thing, but with composite colors, and have one of the frames in the view program in OS9, you can make a VF2, a VF3, a VF4 file that will flip between that number 2, 3, or 4, however many different screens. So make a VF2 where one frame is grayscale. I mean, grayscale that appears grayscale in composite video, which will have some incidental artifacts. And then another that has the artifact colors, so to sort of superimpose them, so you get a little bit more detail in the grayscale version, and then the coloring over that in the other version of it. And of course, it's going to be flickery and so on. That's just how that works. But as a kind of a proof of concept or you know an idea of what I was hoping to go for. So Sockmeister saw this post, and in the comments he took that idea and ran with it. But instead of doing page flip, well, he actually did add that later. But he figured out a way to add the artifact colors into an image that is still essentially 640 by 200 in resolution. So you're not just starting with a half or quarter resolution image. So now we'll get into the weeds a little bit here, and I'll try to keep it brief. There have been some misconceptions about how artifact colors work. And they're not primarily about color bleed. Some people have said that it's about color bleed, or you know, how one color next to each other, next to another one, kind of look, they you know, particularly in a CRT, the colors just sort of bleed together. And they're not about the way cathode ray tubes work either, because artifact colors you can digitize if your video signal is good enough to work with a video capture card. You can digitize that, and anything that can capture NTSC can capture the artifact colors. So artifact colors are about how color is encoded and decoded in NTSC. So because of this, they work on an LCD monitor that decodes NTSC, or on an NTSC capable video frame grabber. NTSC color video signals are a compatible enhancement of black and white color TV signals. And the Y, or luminosity or brightness component of the signal, corresponds exactly to the brightness signal of a black and white TV. An NTSC color TV can still display a black and white signal, and a black and white signal can simply ignore the color component, the color part of the signal, while still displaying the brightness information. NTSC color is encoded as a waveform superimposed over the luminosity signal. It encodes a color as a phase difference between the waveform of the color pixel information and a 3.58 megahertz color burst signal that's transmitted at the beginning of each line of video during the horizontal sync pulse, I think, and before the actual video shows up on the screen. And that phase difference corresponds to the angle around a color wheel. So that's where that color wheel comes in that Robert Galt put up, and that I did a fully colored version of on that Facebook post. So the phase difference. So phase meaning we've got some waveforms, and they're out of phase with each other. The peak, they say this is the peak of one wave, and this is the peak of another wave. If they're in phase, they're like this. If as the peak of this second wave moves out, it becomes out of phase, and that difference between the phase of those signals is that is the chromaticity signal. That is the if I understand it correctly, that describes the angle of the color on this imaginary color wheel. So the brightness level is determined by the luminosity, or Y signal, which is the same as the black and white component of the video. But what we're talking about here is waves upon waves, or squiggles on other squiggles, right? So you've got the luminosity showing the light and the dark pixels, and then on top of that there are other little squiggles that if you see that on a black and white monitor or a black and white TV, it just kind of muddies the picture a little bit. But on a color NTSC TV or monitor, those little extra squiggles get interpreted as color information for the particular pixel. So when the luminosity or brightness signal varies quickly enough over the course of a scan line, that brightness signal can be interpreted by the color decoding circuitry in the monitor or TV or video capture card or whatever, which is looking for a high frequency signal to be interpreted as color information. So rapid changes in brightness are indistinguishable from the color difference waveforms that are superimposed on the brightness signal, squiggles upon squiggles. So there are about 160 full transitions of color information across the screen, if we excluding overscan. The human eye is more sensitive to differences and errors in brightness than in color. So while there can be many changes in brightness across the screen, NTSC allows for only about 160 changes in color. So effectively, in analog TV and TV signals, the brightness information is much higher resolution than the color information. It's like drawing a sketch with a very fine-tipped pencil and then painting translucent colors over it with a child's watercolor brush. If the grayscale sketch underneath is nice and sharp, the low-resolution colorization is fine. And the same understanding of visual perception is also taken advantage of in lossy JPEG image encoding. In JPEG, the brightness component is higher resolution than the color component. So the 2009 method of getting approximately 256 artifact colors is to reduce the source image to 160 by 200, representing the number of color transitions possible on the NTSC screen. Even though the CoCo3 thinks it's making 2 or 4 pixels for each byte of screen data, the bit pattern of an entire byte spans a single color transition. So one byte can be considered to be a representation of the direct waveform, or this distinct waveform describing both luminosity and chromaticity for one of the 160 pixels across the intended, across the screen. And this can be done in either 640 by 200 or 320 by 200 resolutions, but the 2009 palettes were intended for a nominal resolution of 640 by 200 with 4 colors. And those 4 colors were set to be the 4 pure shades of gray that the CoCo3 can produce in its 64 color gamut. Special 256 color palette files map an artifact color to specific colors in the palette, or sorry, to a specific index in the palette. So in order for this process to work, these palettes must be kept in their original order, because the saved pixel data represents an 8-bit index into this map of 256 colors. On the CoCo, this data will be interpreted differently. It will also be index data, but each byte will be broken up into 2 or 4 palette lookup indices, referring to CoCo palettes that were set up with grayscale values. But the bit patterns that this puts on the screen can still be seen as 256 different values representing 256 potential artifact colors that were experimentally identified as the colors in the 256 color palette that those guys came up with in 2009. One of the things, well, why don't we just, I'm just going to play the slideshow that I came up with back in 2009, so we can kind of see what those images looked like. So one thing to keep in mind about this is that these 256 colors are kind of like the 64 colors that the CoCo3 can produce. You can't, not every it's essentially a 256 color palette. It's a fixed palette, right? So there are only 256 colors to choose from to represent any image that you want to represent this way. And so some of those colors are not going to be appropriate for not going to be present in any given image. So even though you've got 256 colors, potentially, it's not likely that they're going to that all 256 colors are going to be present on any given image that you map onto it. So, how many actual colors are displayed right now? I don't know, 16, maybe more than that, maybe 64 colors. It does seem to be more than 16. But that single, I mean, in principle, you could come up with an image that would use all 256 colors. So what a lot of the pictures that I picked out for this were, one of the nice things about this is that it doesn't have any palette switching or screen flipping or anything like that. It's just this is just plain 640 by 200 4 grayscales that's producing these colors. So, which means that it's possible to use these for games and that kind of thing. And so, I was thinking, well, the ideal thing would be, this would be great for adventure games, text adventures with pictures and stuff. And so that's kind of what I was thinking when picking out some of these images off of Flickr. So what Sockmeister did then is he came up with a couple processes where you could more or less preserve the luminosity of 640 pixels across, while also adding in some artifact colors. And he came up with 2 different ways of doing this. And then in his own pictures, he's done even more things. Like, so this image, for instance, this is Earth in the on the screen here. It's you can see a lot more color than is showing up on the little camera here. So unfortunately, and I tried to use a USB digitized
video capture.
Yeah, video capture, and it just wasn't having it. It was no.
Don't panic, it's tricky. I had to try a bunch of them too, and then it asked for help.
Yeah, no usable color came out. I came real close. I've got this since this is the Tandy retro show, I've got this Archer Radio Shack color processor, video color processor, and the problem that happened with the image off the CoCo3 is that it without any sort of processing, it came in basically with no color information. It just looked mostly gray. And I was able to, with this, I was able to fiddle with the chroma and bring that up to the point that you could see the green screen, CoCo screen. But when I did that, it would mess up the sync signals. It would tear. The image would just tear and be useless. So um, we're having to deal with just a webcam picture of the TV screen, which is less than ideal. But so one of the things that Sockmeister came up with was some filters that you could put into. He was using Photoshop, and I've tried it on the on GIMP, and I haven't been particularly successful with that method. But where you could basically just import an image into, load up the filter image, import an image into that as a new layer, and then combine those images using multiply, make a new image from the visible layers, then convert that to grayscale. And the way he did that was he had another separate image when you could just copy the multiplied image, paste it onto the grayscale image, and it would convert it to grayscale, save it out, and that was supposed to work. I haven't had very good luck with that myself. The other thing that he did was he calculated for each, we'll say pixel mod 4 across the horizontal screen, what percentage of red, green, and blue is represented by that pixel position. And it's sort of hard to understand in a way, but I was able to use that though in a little Python program and get results that were not quite as good as what he got, but much better than, I had much better success with that than I did with doing it with his filters in GIMP. Let me show you some other things that I've done. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is just a screenshot from the Terry Gilliam movie Brazil, and it this combines a grayscale version of the image and then a colored version of the image using the 2009 palette. And you can see View will load these images separately, and you can see on the first one, take note that it looks basically grayscale, but it has some random unintended color artifacts in it as well. And then it will load the artifact color version, and then it will flip between them. So you see on the composite video screen, that looked pretty grayscale. And let's see, how's this coming across on? Yeah, it looks better in OBS than it does in through OBS through Zoom.
It's kind of flickering through Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And in fact, it's not showing up right. It's really not showing up right at all. I don't know why. It did earlier. um,
Could be how the webcam is capturing it.
yeah. Um, then let's see. We have okay. Let's do. Uh, Now, why is this not showing up? That's not right at all. That's very strange. On my even on my TV, it's not showing up with the artifact colors. It was just
It's the curse of demos, you know.
the curse of demos, I tell you. All right. Um, so I have another way that we might be able to do this. It's very odd because the artifact colors were showing up properly. Let's see.
Which monitor are you using with this? Are you using
I've
one
got
of the Tandy?
I've got a CM8 over here, and I've got
Okay.
a TV over there in the. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Uh, Very odd. Somehow. Let's see. Ah, if I That's more like it. Yeah, somehow our after running the slideshow the first time, the palettes got set up in a strange way. So this is the screenshot just in the using the mapped to the 2009 palette. Looks better on the actual picture tube than it does interpreted by the Logitech webcam here, but you can, you get the idea. And now let's, here is a rendition of the same image that Sockmeister sent me. And you can see there's a lot more detail.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can definitely see it in the like the little CRT image in the um, in the picture itself. There's a what's supposed to be a grayscale picture of the character's face on a picture tube, and that shows up a lot better but yeah, I mean, on the TV screen, it looks even better than this. The colors are more vibrant, and so on. Let's see. I did a. Did a couple of these. So this is one that that I did. I'm using one of the same pictures that was in the original slideshow, and take my word for it, it looks a lot better on the TV than on Zoom here, but there you may be able to see that there's more detail than visible than in the other than doing it the old way by reducing the resolution ahead of time to 160 pixels wide. Yeah. This I did using Sockmeister's calculations for the how much of each color component is represented in you know, pixel 0, pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel 3, and then it starts a new color clock, color cycle, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's in pixel 0, there is 0.3882359 of the red color component, and 0.6039 of the green, and 0.0078 of the blue. In pixel 1, there is 0.682 times red, 0.176 times green, and 0.141 times blue. Pixel 2, there's 0.267 or 262 of the red, 0.1215 of the green, and 0.6156 of the blue. And in pixel 3, there's no green component. It is 0.4313 red and 0.5686 blue. So basically, you take you multiply the values by those amounts, and those are your output pixels at those particular columns of the screen, and that's how you get this. So, and I put together a little quick and dirty Python to do this, it still needs a lot of work in order to do it right. I need to make it so that you can enter a file name on the command line. Right now, I just go in and edit the file name and so on. But yeah, anyway, that's,
Joel?
Yeah.
I have one question from 8-Bits in the basement. He wants to know if there's a big difference in the file sizes between both methods.
Ultimately, when you get them on the CoCo, they're the same. So what because they are just 640 by 200 pictures, 640 by 200 4-color pictures using black, dark gray, light gray, and white as the palette. So once you get them on the CoCo, same size. the process that I used uh, prior to Sockmeister's innovation was that I would open up a JPEG photo, scale it to 640 by 400. Then, because the aspect ratio is different on the CoCo, say at 640 by 200, it's not the same aspect ratio as VGA. So scale it to 640 by 400. Then scale only in the vertical dimension, scale it down to 200. And then reduce the colors from true color to 256 colors using the palette that I got from Jason Law back in the day, and I have uploaded that onto the CoCo Facebook group. I don't know, some time ago I did that, so you should be able to find it there. Now, one thing that's very important is that when you map it onto the map the image onto that palette, you can't sort the palette. I've seen documentation in GIMP saying that it does not guarantee that it doesn't sort the palette, but it doesn't. It hasn't yet. So it will map directly onto that palette without messing with the order, because the order is crucially important. The output, the 8-bit value for each pixel, is on the modern computer. It's an index to a palette register that has a color in it. On the CoCo, that index number, that 8-bit number, becomes the artifact color, essentially. Well, I mean, it also is interpreted as palette information, but the colors that the CoCo3 puts out make the proper artifact colors. So then I would take the image and I would scale it to 160 pixels wide, and I think I'm mixing up the other things. Anyway, ultimately I'd scale it to a 160 by 200 image in 256 colors using the 2009 palette. I would save it out as an 8-bit TGA or Targa true color file, because that's a very, very simple file format that has a simple representation of the image. And then I would use head and tail to cut off the header and of the Targa image, and I would just concatenate a header file that just has that just turns it into a VEF CoCo file that has the proper palette, grayscale palette. And after processing it that way, then you can just load it up in View in Nitro S9. I had to get a little more creative with the others, turning it into grayscale. I had to GIMP doesn't know how to save GIFs in lower than, I think it promotes all GIFs to 256 colors, which then when you load that up into a CoCo3, it tries to display it as if it's a 256 color picture, and that doesn't work right. So I found that Image Magic has a convert program that will I could save a grayscale image in GIMP as a PGM, which was from the NetPBM utilities. Save it as a PGM file, and then use convert to turn that into a four gray GIF, which I could then display on the CoCo and convert to a VEF, edit the palettes as 00102030 gives you the 4 grayscales, and then you're off to the races. Any other questions or?
That was the only one. Yeah, we're basically out of time, but it'd be interesting to delve into this some more. So maybe in the next 3 months, we do a CoCo Tech one evening and have you come on. We'll get you a better video capture setup. I got some links to send you. And as I have been through this myself, so I can give you some guidance on that. And let's do some more on this. I think it'd be cool.
I've got a lot more of the technical data that we just couldn't squeeze in here, and I did kind of prepare to try and put these on the screen, but I felt like with the time constraint, I didn't want to fight with OBS to get each.
Yeah, get the basics out. Go from there. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on. And like I said, I would like to delve into this some more. It's an interesting area. And I said, we have bandwidth to do stuff like a CoCo Tech, some evening, like a Tuesday. Works good between Thursdays and Saturdays. And, do some stuff and show it off. So let's see. Up next, we're going to have Gilland, and he's basically in the wings here, ready to go. And that'll fill us the last hour before we start the CoCo Nation for this Saturday. So thank you again, Joel, for showing up. Joel AV, that's how it's pronounced. And hope to see more of you. And thank you for coming on this year as well as last year.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.